Hey, this is Benjamin Bernstein with astroshaman.com, and the theme of our video today is the greater the challenge, the greater the opportunity for breakthrough. And I'm going to use my own recent experience as the basis for this, as those of you who've been following my newsletter and email list and such know. On December 11, a little over 2 weeks ago as I record this, my beloved partner Maeikisala had a major stroke, and it was in the left side of her brain. It was a hemorrhagic stroke, which means that there was bleeding into the brain and certain parts of her brain died. And shortly after the stroke, she had no use of her right arm or leg at all. We got her to the hospital, and she was in pretty bad shape for a couple of days, could not even speak. But then when she was able to speak, it was obvious to everyone who was seeing her that she was in an entirely new state of consciousness. There was a beatific, angelic, awakened quality about her that had not been present before. I mean, she'd been a pretty spiritual and beautiful being before that, but this was like major upgrade. She feels it too. And she has, thank God, been, recovering. Her, I've since this happened, I've read a whole book on stroke and halfway through another one and listening to some podcasts. So I know that she's now in the subacute phase. About a week after stroke, typically, some of the functionality starts coming back. The part of the brain that the technical word is stunned. I mean, there's a core part of the brain that just dies. All the neurons there are gone. Then there's a larger field called the, I can't even remember the term for it. I want to say penumbra, but that's probably wrong. Anyhow, a larger area of the brain that gets stunned, not totally dead, but the cells are sort of just, stunned, literally. And then they start coming back in the period between, I believe, a week and 3 months, especially, they start coming back. So we're very gratified that Maeikisala has been recovering very quickly. Those who have observed other stroke survivors say that her progress is actually pretty quick. She went from unable to speak at all one day to speaking coherently in complex sentences. And her right arm, which for a week was dead weight, now, a couple of days ago, she was able to squeeze my finger, and now she's moving individual fingers. So a lot of capabilities coming back. This is not unusual, apparently, in stroke survivors. There's a lot of spontaneous recovery. She, fortunately, is at the Care Partners rehabilitation facility here in the Asheville area, and it's one of the best in the region, and probably the best in the region, actually. So she's going to be there maybe a couple of weeks, and they're going to get her back up to speed the best they can before she comes home and gets into rehab. And I was with her pretty much 24/7 for the first week until she got transferred over to Care Partners. Then I was away. We both felt like it would be good for me to get back to my work. But the last couple of nights, she had been sleeping on her own in the room, although it's a 24/7 facility, nurses constantly coming in and out, checking on you. But the last couple of nights I've slept with her again because she's been having sleep issues, and we've been working through those issues. As a very young child, she was born sort of incompletely formed and spent her first 6 months of life having numerous reconstructive surgeries on her body. And she developed sort of a dislike of hospitals, imagine that. And therefore she has been having to get past her extreme dislike of being in hospitals by being in hospital environments for several weeks on end. So one of her challenges. We both understand she's in a very profound shamanic death and rebirth process and is having to face all sorts of challenges, external and internal, as part of this profound initiation that she's going through. She had been enrolled in 2 simultaneous mystery schools at the same time. And I told her, that might be a little intense, don't you think? She said, I can handle it. And she's definitely getting her death and rebirth process big time through all this. And I just want to, that's kind of the facts. Now I want to give some of my observations about both her and my experience of this. One thing I'm really proud of us both about is we didn't waste any time wishing that the stroke had not happened. And for those of you who've read my post, I apologize. There's some overlapping material here, but since many people will be watching this video who have not read the posts, then I feel like I need to give a little bit of an overview. We very quickly accepted this is our new reality. We didn't waste time grumbling and getting mad that it had happened. I know for myself, I pivoted almost instantly. This is the new reality. the old one's gone. And just accepted that, and then stepped into my role as her primary, advocate and supporting her the very best I could. So sometimes the universe surprises you with things you didn't expect, and you can either fight the universe and get really frustrated and upset, and the universe wins when you do that. I've learned it's better to just accept that reality is as it is and start that as your baseline, and then if you want change, then accepting the current reality and then creating change from there is a much more productive strategy, because of course then you don't waste time fighting against what is, which is futile and just wastes energy. So we're both on track with the reality. We both have a spiritual mindset where we believe that this was a soul chosen event, and we believe that at the soul level we chose to have this happen at this time. So we not only believe it's not a bad thing, we believe it's a good thing, because we know that we believe anyhow that we chose this challenge and are working from that mindset. And again, I like to say to my clients a lot of the time, tell a good story about what's happening. Find the most life-affirming story possible to fit the set of facts you're in and work from there, because that will make your life more rich. And we're doing the same thing here. Our story is we, on the soul level, chose this event. We're in it. It's very challenging in many ways, and we're totally up for the new adventure. And our egos didn't choose it, but our souls did, and that helps us be in acceptance of that situation. Now, she got her awakening right away. As I reported in the first post that I put up a week after the event, I just reported that I was holding steady in my awakened self. I've been pretty solidly awakened for years now. My initial spiritual awakening that stuck finally was in 2012. And at that moment I thought I'd hit the jackpot and gone all the way in, but I had no perspective and didn't realize I was just at the starting line. The awesome thing about embodied awakening is it just keeps getting better the longer you live, as long as you keep developing your practice and your gifts. So it was maybe 10, 11 days after her stroke that I got a spontaneous uptick. And what was so interesting about this is I wasn't even doing any spiritual practice. I was completely busy supporting her from the moment of her stroke for over a week. I didn't do a single meditation or spiritual practice at all. And this is where the grace started to happen. I would, be laying there, in her hospital room, whether it was the emergency room or the intensive care unit, and I would just be laying there and I would feel an energy come over me. It's kind of like it's a download. You're just laying there and all of a sudden you feel this wonderful energy permeating every cell of your body. And I just lay there. Typically this lasts maybe 20, 30 minutes, I guess. And by the time it's done, I'm just recharged. And I get these infusions of energy on a daily basis. And I've experienced them before, but it was really good to feel the divine support so consistently during this initial process. Then about 10, 11 days in, all of a sudden something shifted. And I mentioned this in my second post, the Christmas Day update, and I phrased it very carefully because I wanted to mention it. I didn't want it to sound arrogant. All I can say is there's a significantly more notable integration of Benjamin and Spirit, and my experience is I can no longer tell the difference between where Benjamin ends and Spirit begins. Before that, there was still I could tell there was a dividing line between the personality of the divine, and now it's just not there. I'm just blended. So whatever that means, I'm sure the Hindus would have a technical term for it, but I don't know what it is. But there's just a complete blending now. And I'm also noticing that energy motion just is happening more spontaneously now. If I'm in a situation, one of the things I've been working on in my shamanic apprenticeship with Jeff Firewalker Schmidt, the Eagle Condor Mystery School, is we're learning how to eat hucha. And that's something they do in the Andes, where they work with the Cusco, this energy center down in the lower belly, and you learn how to open it and absorb the heavy energy in an environment. And then the Cusco, this also known as the lower dantian, or the central burner. In other practices, there's other words for it too, that it absorbs and sends the residue down into the earth. So I've been in environments where spontaneously my Cusco opens and absorbs heavy energy in the environment. There's other environments where I just, like with Maeikisala just about every day, we're engaging in just spontaneously, energy starts flowing. And I didn't initiate anything, but energy is flowing from me to her. It may last a while. And these are like, the divine aspect of myself just sending what's needed. And it's happened with other people too, as appropriate. So the distinction here and the difference between my prior experiences now, there's more spontaneous spirit motion happening. There's no ego initiation of it at all. It's just happening. So I remember years ago, I was in an ayahuasca ceremony and was in such a sweet state of divine bliss. I just begged the divine, please take away my free will and take away any chance of me ever getting it back, even if I wanted it. I just want to be your puppet. I want to be your servant. Use me. And at that point, the voice of God came back in my head with a mighty thunder and said, no. So at least at that point, there wasn't any giving up free will. What I'm discovering, though, is what I'm getting into now is just a natural, organic integration more fully. It's not so much a surrendering as an integrating. There's just not that much difference anymore between my divine aspect and my human aspect. And it's a very interesting experience, and I like it. I also want to mention another spiritual phenomenon that's been going on for months now, which is if I'm like working a long day and need energy, I've become aware there is a tube of energy coming in the crown chakra, and it's like feeding me energy. It's like a tube with vitality coming down it, and that tube can stay active for a long time, and so I can have the energy I need to do something for quite an extended period. But then when it's done, the mind says, "Okay, you got it." That energy can turn off, and like, "Oh God, I gotta sleep." It's like just a collapse factor. So it's interesting to have that little phenomenon happening too. So now, again, the danger here as I share this is someone's going to watch and say, oh, he's so arrogant, boasting about his spirituality. He calls himself spiritual, he's all full of ego. And that's what I'm hoping isn't happening here. My perceived role of myself as a spiritual teacher of some kind is to share my experience as it's happening without getting into ego inflation, without boasting, and just trying to tell you honestly and authentically, this is what's happening. And the only reason I'm doing it is not to say that I'm special, because I'm not. I'm here to say that if it happens for me, it can happen for you. If I, who started life and spent many years completely oblivious to the spirit realm, who believed for 17 years there wasn't even a divine aspect, who believed it was all just 3D material, dead matter, and then had a little bit of an awakening or a first glimpse, at the age of 17 and started on the spiritual path, but took decades of hard work before I made any kind of real inroads into the spirit realm. And now I'm supremely empathic. I have just routine awareness of inner realm experience when I'm interacting with people and high sensitivity to the energetics. But that came, through, I started in 2005. After nearly 15 years of plant spirit ceremonies, about 200 of them, ayahuasca mostly, and other plant spirit teachers, just, getting those layers of thick, sludgy hoocha off so I could have some kind of sensitivity and awareness. So, I was a tough nut. I had to work really hard to get any kind of sensitivity and any kind of ability as a healer or as any kind of awakened being. So, I'm holding myself as an example, not of someone special, but of someone who was not particularly gifted at this stuff and had to work really hard to get to it. So those of you on the path, who obviously this video is for, just a perception of what I'm experiencing, what's possible, and if this provides any kind of encouragement to you. Again, I'm not doing this to boast or think I'm special. I'm just reporting my experience, and back to the initial theme I reported when I started this video. Maeikisala and I faced a tremendous challenge. She had a stroke. She lost, at least temporarily, a significant amount of her human functionality. Can't do the activities of daily living right now. And, it was a huge shock. And as I said in my first post, I cried repeatedly. I would look at her and I'd just burst into tears and just cry my heart out for several minutes. So much sorrow and grief. And I didn't hold anything back. And when I did it, she said, baby, cry it out, feel it all. And I did. I held nothing back. I grieved completely, and that wave would go. And I think by holding nothing back, by being fully in that experience, by completely accepting what is, that allowed this new energy, this shift of consciousness, which perhaps is necessary for me to deal with this new reality, because I've got a lot more on my shoulders now than I did. You know, this experience that some would go cursing and shaking their fists at heaven and just getting all caught up in anger and rage about it, the effect for both her and me as we accept it is we get this cool upgrade of our awakening. So big catalyst, not anything we ever would have wished for, but here it is. And again, because we're both using it skillfully, at least the best we can, we're getting this sweet benefit of deeper awakening and a whole new level of experience. I'm not even going to get into the whole group support of our tribe of Law of One friends and other people who are supporting us with prayer and ceremony, and the other messages of how a group can come together and become a unified field to support individuals in it, and the benefit everyone gets from that. That's a whole other topic. But just, now I feel like I'm wandering a bit, but I just want to come to some kind of closure and just drive once again that main point home that is my theme today, which is we're coming into an interesting year in 2020. I still haven't got my video up, but when it is, I go deep into Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, especially Saturn, Pluto. Every time Saturn, Pluto can join in history, it's very intense. There's a big challenge in the world. People get hit with major difficulties is a big theme of it. And at the same time, as Maeikisala and I have experienced, we got hit with what some would consider a tragedy. And out of it, we've woven and been gifted with an amazing, you know, jump in consciousness that is sticking for both of us. So if you have challenge arise, just know that accepting it without resentment, or if you do have resentment or anger, work through it, do your shadow work, use a tool like my healing invocation or whatever gets you clear of that, and just, you know, don't sit in rage and resentment and resistance. Those will just bottleneck you. You got to accept what is and then work with it the best you can, and playing the hand you're dealt, and using your best tools and consciousness that you can provide miraculous results, knowing again that the more difficult the challenge that you're faced with, the more incredible the breakthrough on the other side when you master it well. So I'll leave it at that. So here's my little plug at the end. If you would ever like to work with me professionally, my site is astroshaman.com. I do astrology and shamanic healing and life coaching. I've got a couple of memberships, one for astrology mentoring, one called Awakening Plus, where you can join us and have it support your awakening, either get you into awakening in the first place or help you deepen the awakening you have. All sorts of cool stuff you can learn out at astroshaman.com. Thanks for watching this. I hope it's been helpful, and I wish you infinite blessings. Bye-bye.